to want to be alive. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and a big warm welcome to all our Muslim listeners, and a really big welcome to all our non-Muslim listeners. You're listening to the Let's Talk show. My name is Zahid Makbool, and over the next 2 hours, if we don't get arrested, there'll be a miracle because it's going to go down. There's going to be some big topics that are being discussed tonight. And in the studio at the top of the shop is the knockout, Brother Naseem Ashraf. Brother Naseem, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brother Zahid, how are you doing, my brother?
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Thanks to everybody's du'as. And in the top right-hand corner, for the first time on Let's Talk, we have a new scholar with us, Sheikh Imran from Rochdale, I believe. Sheikh Imran, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Respected hosts and listeners online, Jazakallah khair for having me here. May Allah bless you and reward you, all of you. Ameen.
Sheikh, have you got your cup of bubbly tea ready?
Yeah, I have it here, mashallah. It's
what about the rusk biscuits? Are they nearby as well?
No, they've gone. They're gone. The rusk
Right,
biscuits
okay.
are gone now.
Yeah, I'm just making sure, because when it gets thick and strong, I don't want you saying that, I've got to have a little bit of a break or anything like that. and in the bottom right-hand corner, no show is incomplete, no question is incomplete, and most questions are usually incomplete. But we've got the editor of The Revival, Brother Sajid, a qualified counsellor, not the Dudpati squad after your vote, but somebody who can help your mind. Brother Sajid Iqbal, how are you?
Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum. How are you? You well? You good?
Yeah, alhamdulillah. My beard is not jet black. It's actually growing a line. I'm thinking of getting 3 and having a word with Adidas if I can get sponsored.
MashaAllah. And just to say that the Sheikh, I don't think it's Sheikh Imran.
Is it?
Oh, I believe it's Sheikh. Because I just thought then, have we got a new Sheikh in the studio? Yes,
Sheikh Mirazam Khan.
Yes.
My apologies, Sheikh. If you'd like me to get into the cooker position at any time, let me know. But Sheikh Mirazam Khan from Rochdale, my apologies.
Jazakallah khair.
Yeah. So, Brother Sajid, before we start boring anybody into death, can I just ask, I hope you've got us a very, very important topic.
Yes, alhamdulillah, this is a very important topic, and this is the Let's Talk show, so we only do important topics. So today, inshallah, we're going to be talking about, what is halal and what is haram. We're going to be talking about what is allowed in Islam and what is not allowed in Islam. And when we say halal, what does that mean? Who decides, who defines, what are the sources for halal and haram? And then what is Islamic law? When we talk about Islamic law, what is Makrooh, what is wajib, what is Sunnah mu'akkida, what is all these kind of terminology. So we're asking the Sheikh in terms of what they mean. And then we'll go into a bit more deeper. Is halal and haram only about food? Or is it more than that? Is it about clothes? Is it about, each and every aspect of our life? Right.
Assalamu alaikum. I just want to give a big salam out to all the brothers that are listening in and some of the people. I just want to say a big salam to Brother Sajid from Rochdale. I want to say a big salam going out to George. Who's a non-Muslim listener, listening to our show for the last couple of years. And I also want to send out a big special salam to a very old friend of mine, Simon Collins. Simon, if you're listening to our show for the first time, assalamu alaikum, and nice to hear about your mum, and congratulations on having a beautiful daughter there. Big salam also going out to Brother Nadeem from Blackburn, and my other friends that are sending loads and loads of messages here, Brother Izzy from Sheffield, Brother Nafiz Habib, Sister Nagma, Harris, Fuzzy, Sahil, Brother Fiaz from Pakistan. And I just want to say that this show tonight is no holds barred. And one other thing, tonight's show is not for the Bunty and Bubblies, because there's going to be some very important questions. So if anyone wants to nard show, clear off and try Radio Ramazan tomorrow afternoon. If anyone wants to play the yes and no game, bug Dr. Evil Umar. I'm sure you'll say no. So, Brother Sajid, this topic of halal and haram, it's pretty straightforward. I don't know why you're making a big deal about it. You just can't go to McDonald's unless you're having a Hajj in Dubai. It's as easy as that. We didn't need a Sheikh. That's all it's about, innit?
Yes.
Don't have to worry about it. Just don't have the McDonald's.
Yes, I hope it was just as simple as that. Yeah. So Sheikh, if it's okay with yourself, if I can ask you the first few questions, inshallah. Okay.
Yeah.
So when we're trying to understand in Islam what is allowed, what is not allowed, what we're talking about is Islamic law. Okay. Now, when we hear the word Islamic law, Sharia law, we all get a bit scared, because of what's happening in the media. So first of all, before we even get into haram, halal and haram, what is Islamic law? If you don't mind, yeah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum to all the brothers and sisters Islam who are listening. Very, very important topic. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to understand it with his insight and with his help and with his nur. We send peace and blessings upon the final prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Yes, the Sharia, as in its layman's term, means a path or a way or a road. Sharia is something which has been, it's highlighted in the media, in the news, under different banners. But in Islamic terms, Sharia is mentioned. Shara'atan min Allah or shara'a lakum min ad-din. Allah has prescribed a way for you, a route for you, a path for you, in order that you serve Him. And then, in order to serve Him, how do we tread upon this path? Now, very, very important when we living in a country. And we need to learn, for instance, how to drive. We take our theory test, our practical tests, and only then are we able to drive in that country. So similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in order for us to live on this world, He has created the world for us, He created the universe for us. And ever since the first day from the creation of Adam, when we seen the rebellion of Iblis, Shaitan, when he refused to do sujood to Adam alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from that day, He prescribed a Sharia, a way of how to live on this earth peacefully, amicably, on that route of submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Okay. So what does the Sharia consist of? So when we are talking about Sharia, what makes up the Sharia?
So the Sharia, so in order to deduct the rules and regulations of the Sharia, mainly they come from two sources, which is the Quran and the Sunnah. The Quran is the book of Allah, the final book, and the Sunnah is the way, the tradition, the sayings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His interpretations of the Quran are also called the Sunnah. So the main two sources of the Sharia, majority of the law you will see or you will get from the Quran. For instance, the 10 major sins or the minor sins are all mentioned in the Quran, with some explanation from the Prophet ﷺ himself directly, and also the hadith. They actually interpret, or they describe and summarize the main sort of Sharia headings. Also, very, very important, with the Sharia, we have also the companions who understood the Sharia, who were there present with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and their views also are important when it comes to Sharia judgments. Then from there we have the latter tabi'in, the companions that came after, and up to the time of the four rightly guided caliphs, and beyond them, when we come to the four imams of fiqh, the jurisprudence comes into it, and this is where a bulk of our Sharia, of our do's and don'ts, rules and regulations, this is where they are focused on, the halal and the haram.
Yes. So when you just said that Islamic jurisprudence, and you said that this is
Yeah.
fiqh, what is that,
Yeah.
and how, and what was the reason that we have that? Why don't we just have the Quran and Sunnah?
Yeah, so very, very good, important question. And this is something which I think we need to understand, that how did the fiqh evolve? How did it come into being? Now, prior to the fiqh, we had the Quran, we had the companions, we had the hadith, which were understood by the companions. As time passed, after within the first century, we had the tabi'een, and then we had those who followed the tabi'een. The tabi'een are those who followed the sahaba, who came after the companions. Now, when a particular ruling was presented to the companions, you would sometimes find difference of opinion even amongst the companions, on Shari rules and regulation, which was accepted. For instance, the manasik of Hajj, the difference of opinion regarding maybe the ways of praying the Salah. These were present even at the time of the companions, peace and blessings be upon them. When we come to the latter part of the first century, as we had the tabi'een and the mass sort of influx of new Muslims, this is where the difference of opinion or the ability to accept others' opinions, we see that there was a problem when it came to the basic foundations of Islam. People was starting to move away from the foundations. For this, the scholars, the five imams as we know them of fiqh, they came up with a great formula in order to bring all the difference of opinion under one madhab, one maslak, so that people can understand it and they can refer to it in times of need. So that's just a summary of what happened.
So what we're saying is that without fiqh, we were pretty thick.
Without fiqh, especially
without fiqh for that. No fiqh, you're thick.
And also, just to kind of clarify then, so all the rulings and all the rulings of Islam that we have today, are they all from the Islamic jurisprudence? Are they from the four madhabs? So there are no, and are these rulings based on the Quran and Sunnah?
Yeah. So very, very important. So when a faqih, so a faqih is somebody who's an expert in jurisprudence. And when he comes up with a ruling, he will always look at the Quran as his first, resource, then the Sunnah, then the sayings of the companions. Then he will look at what was the practice of that time, and then he will, if he needs to, if there's no ruling which is equivalent at that time, he will resort to ijtihad or qiyas. So qiyas and ijtihad are two of those the fundamentals of fiqh which are still being used in this present time. Because, for instance, there might be a situation where there is a challenge that we are facing in our times, like for instance this coronavirus, the COVID-19. We've never had this in the history of Islam where a full community has been put in a lockdown. So what are the rulings regarding COVID-19? This is something new which the ulamas are constantly looking into from the sources, from the jurisprudence, and coming up with new sort of solutions for their problems.
Okay, so just to make it clear then, so in terms of any rulings that we have today, they're based on the Quran, they're based on the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ, okay, the hadith, and then after that, whatever we can't find in the Quran or whatever we can't find in the hadith, it is in the ijma, which is the consensus, and then whatever is not in that is what we find in terms of whatever is happening in the age of, in that age, the rules then become into existence because those issues did not occur before. Okay, so that's what the qiyas is. Now, a question can be thrown here. Then, the rulings of Islam then are based upon the opinion of men. So it's not really divine law, because, for example, Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Malik, and the Imams this is the man-made opinion, isn't it? So it's not really divine, is what people would say.
Yeah, so this is a really a common it's a misconcept that people have in their mind, because they think that Imam Abu Hanifa, he has just come up with his own opinion. But what they've got to realize is that whenever Imam Abu Hanifa is about to address a problem, he will always go for the solution which is based in one of the four main categories, either Quran, Sunnah, Ijma, Sahaba, or the Qiyas, or whatever the Sahaba had their code and their action. So never ever will he say something out of his own opinion or his own mind. Rather, he will always, all the four Imams, they always refer back to, you could say, the fountain or the source which will have the directives. Now, the Quran itself, we will look into some of the examples of how the Quran has the base in the Quran. So you have the main sort of directives in the Quran, but from there you will see the description, the explanation is given in the Sunnah. If not, you find it in the ijma of the Sahaba. If not, you find it later on in the practices of the Tabi'een, and finally with the four Imams.
MashaAllah. Just before I go into any further questions, Brother Zaid, you want to go through any of the numbers or any text messages, please?
Yep. Let me quickly find it. What it's saying is, I think it might be on the list of Brother Sajid's questions, that where does it say about halal and haram within the Quran? Period. I'm not interested in anyone else's opinion.
Okay. Yes. So I think that is a really good question. So let's start from there then. In terms of, so when we talk about halal, Sheikh, and when we talk about haram, let's try to break that down. So first of all, what is halal and what determines something to be halal?
Yeah, so the halal is the default position when it comes to anything which has been created for us, is that it is halal. That when it comes to issues of non worshipping acts, for instance, our food, our dealings, our financial transactions, muamalat, these the default position is that they are halal, unless there is an instruction in the Quran which tells you that, no, Allah tells you not to go near, for instance, pork or usury or killing. So there are specific items which have been mentioned, or the headings which are mentioned, after which we have the explanation either in the Quran itself or in the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So halal is what is pure. Halal is described as something which is natural, which is something which Allah has provided. He mentions in the Quran, هُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ لَكُم مَّا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا. He has provided for you, he has created for you everything on this earth. So
Okay.
he has given this earth for us to use and to make our life easier through the halal.
And
Then
for anything to be halal, it has to be what, a direct verse of the Quran, or does it have to be
no, yeah.
okay.
So the default position is that everything, when it comes to our food, our dealings, our transactions, they are by default, our businesses they are halal, unless there is a directive which has been given to the opposite. Now that is the opposite for our worship. Yeah, so there's a difference in worship and you can say our day-to-day dealings. For instance, eating does come under worship, and it comes under our day-to-day financial transactions. So in eating, in food items, unless something has been categorically declared as haram, it is normally halal.
So does that mean that everything is halal, everything is permissible,
Yeah,
unless it is deemed as haram or not permissible? Is that correct?
yeah, that's correct. So unless there's something explicit from Allah Himself, from the Quran, or is there something explicit from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or there is something which the Sahabas had consensus of. Like for instance, we will see many examples later on that the Sahaba, they either reinitiated a certain act, like for instance the Taraweeh is a classical example. Some of the rulings of zakat, for instance, were they were looked at in greater details, how to maybe make it easy for the people. So in matters of mutual dealings, the permissibility is the asal, that is the default position, unless we have something
Okay.
from the Quran, from the
Okay.
Prophet.
If you've got any questions, please send them in. 07801 951 501. 07801 951 501. So you can send us any question by text message, and inshallah we will try our best, if it's on topic, with the Sheikh, who'll answer those questions. I've got a couple of text messages. I'll quickly ring them out. A big salam to my very close and dear brother, Amir Malik. Thank you very much for your du'as, and more importantly, the surah you sent and the advice that you gave, my brother. Jazakallah. He caught me drinking fizzy. This guy's a bit too healthy for me, but don't worry about it. Got some more text messages here. This halal and haram program is very complicated, innit? Yes, my brother, it is a bit complicated. It's a little bit more than eating the wrong burger. Let me tell you that. This is the tip of the iceberg. A question that's being asked here. in terms of an intention, can an intention be haram also? So if I make an intention, could I make an intention that is also be classed as haram? So these are some of the questions that Brother Sajid will have a lot more. Got some text messages coming through. Let me just find it. I'll come back to it because it's quite far down, and I'll come back to it, Brother Sajid.
Okay, Jazakallah. So, Sheikh, in terms of what we talked about so far, for something to be halal, it's something that is permissible and something that is based in the Quran and Sunnah. Is that correct?
Yeah, so halal is everything which Allah has not sent a direct ayah, a Quranic verse, or a hadith which says that it is haram. For instance, the ayahs in the Quran which talk about haram, they are they're the main general sort of topics that we look into for food, for buying and selling, killing. These are all things which have been specifically mentioned because Allah knows the insan, the human being, he is prone to rebel. And he will always look for excuses. Yeah.
Okay. And in terms of haram, so what is haram then, and does something become haram?
Yeah. So haram is the opposite. So haram is anything which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in his book and through his Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and naturally that item will be against the fitrah or the nature of the human being as it is known by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator. So the haram will be clearly mentioned, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions, the halal and the haram are clear. Yeah, so one of the viewers mentioned that it is difficult. It's only difficult if we make it difficult. But the Prophet also mentioned that it is clear, and what lies in between is the gray area or the mutashabihat. And what did he advise? He said, keep away from those things which are doubtful. So there are doubtful things which, unfortunately, a lot of our haram things have become doubtful, and a lot of our doubtful things have become halal. So this is where the mixing up sort of occurs in the Sharia.
MashaAllah. Just before I go to Brother Zahid, let me just bring Brother Naseem in, and Brother Naseem, from your understanding as well, in terms of what we've talked about so far, if you want to add anything in terms of halal and haram, inshallah.
Yeah, I mean, the Sheikh's explained it very, very well. Alhamdulillah, mashallah. For me, it's you look at halal and haram, and like Sheikh said, that everything is halal unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has stipulated it is not. So halal and haram simply means permissible and not permissible. So it's
stop and go,
not lawful.
Yeah. Okay. I've now.
Yeah,
thanks, Brother Sajid. I've now found that text message. How do we determine if benefits from housing from the government is halal or haram? Since government use the threat of force against their citizens in order to tax them, is that halal activity or haram activity?
Yeah, we've actually come to that, inshallah. Okay, yep.
You got that one, have you? Okay, I'm going to hand out the number again, and I'm going to quickly clear these text messages ready for Brother Sajid. So if you want to take part in tonight's show, this is Let's Talk. We have some rules of this show, and that is we don't name names unless they've done something really good. And if you want to send me a question, it gets filtered. I don't just read it out straight away. Back from there, Brother Fiaz in Pakistan. Big salam alaikum to you. Questions come in from somebody blank. It says here, brothers, I'm looking forward to this show, and I'm hoping that it will be recorded and put on playback for tomorrow, because I'm going to have a family discussion around your show, as we often do. Haram and halal is a lot more than what meets the eye. Very good topic, and excellent scholar. Jazakallah, thanks very much for that. Another one here. Again, no name on it. It says, good, bro. And thanks to all the people there. The guy in the top left looks scary. And I notice that whenever he comes on, you two become a little bit quiet. That's the knockout. He says, looking scary at the top. Yeah. Feared. You should be feared. Another one here, and this is from Raja Sahib. It says here, big salam from all my family to Sheikh Saab for coming on the radio. His explanations, even my daughter, who's only 17, is listening to. P.S. I hope she's allowed to listen to the show. Jazakallah. So we're getting through to the younger people already. The text message 07801 951 501. And my nephews, Emin and niece, Maryam. And I also have another, my nephew of his wife, Umera. She has to be the halal cop. She won't let you drink a glass of water without checking the ingredients. What's all that about, Saj? You can't even eat a bounty anymore, apparently.
What's going on? Yeah, because it's got E4716225 or something. Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought you could shake. You know, is it not true that you could eat everything and just say "Kul huwallahu" 3 times afterwards?
You know what,
Actually,
Zaid? You know, when I used to be young, young lad, when in school.
I can't remember that far back, Saj.
Yeah. And if I thought something was a haram, I used to just blow on it and I'd go 2, yeah, 3 times, and it used to become halal. Yeah.
But the sad is, if anyone deserves to be in the cooker position, it's you. At least I said the "Kul huwallahu" 3 times. Everything I see. He's actually spitting on it. Tu. Is that now if you see the devil? You meant if you see the devil, tu.
Well,
when the devil bars.
When you're about 10, it's all right, isn't it? Well, let me go on to the next question, Sheikh, if that's okay. And what I want to go into now is the Islamic ruling. So how, because not everything is halal, not everything is haram. There are different kind of categories. Okay. So if you could just try to explain some of these, please. So if I could ask you, what is fard, first of all?
Yeah, so these the classifications of these acts of worship, they usually came from the jurisprudence, from the fiqh. So we know that the farad is something which you must do, an obligation. This is farad. Like, for instance, the 5 daily prayers, the fasting, the hajj for those who can afford it. These are called the faraid. So you have faraid in acts of worship, and you also have faraid as in acts of mu'amalat, or your relationship with others, with your community, with your family. So you have faraid.
How does something become farz? What is
So farad is farad has a clear evidence, a clear instruction from the Quran.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, number one, the clear instruction from the Quran, and as we mentioned earlier, with either the explanation given in the Sunnah or in the Quran itself. So the 5 daily prayers, paying zakat if you are above the nisab, the threshold, these are all the faraid in the prayers, for instance. Then you have obviously the other categories which are lower, but the fard is the main one which we all should stick to, and we should all work towards.
Yeah, and after the fard, I believe it's the wajib. Yeah. So if you could explain what wajib is, please.
Wajib is a cricketer. That's who Wajib is. Cricketer, lives in Copies, bro. Very, very good spinner as well. Oh, sorry, that was Brother Wajid. I was thinking of something else.
So brother Wajib is obviously it's another ruling which is below the farad. For instance, I'll give you an example of
his
Wajib
is below the farad as well.
So the Wajib is just 1 degree below the farad. Again, it is highly recommended to perform the wajibat. When it comes to the prayers, there are certain wajibats within the prayers. But if you miss a wajib, your act of worship is still fine. If you miss a farad, then you must repeat that prayer or that hajj or that siyam. For instance, in the siyam, there are faraid, there are wajibat, which you should stick to, and you must perform.
So what are the examples of a wajib? If just to make it easier.
So a wajib, for instance, in the prayer is that you must recite Surah Al-Fatiha. So according to the Hanafi scholars, they say Fatiha you must read. If you miss a Surah Al-Fatiha, there's no problem. You just do a sajda, which is a sajda for forgetfulness, after you've completed the prayer. So that is an example of a wajib.
Okay, and then we've got, in terms of something which is sunnah, and then I believe there's sunnah mu'akkida, sunnah ghair mu'akkida. You could just explain that as well, please.
Yeah, very good. So sunnah is generally what the Prophet ﷺ, so there are 2 types of sunnah. Just to quickly explain this, there is sunnah which are part of the habitual acts of the Prophet ﷺ, which may also include his acts of worship, but there are those sunnah which are strictly solely his acts of worship. So out of the 2, the one we are meant to follow, or we're supposed to follow, is the one which pertain to the acts of worship. For instance, the sunnah acts of the prayer. to recite the tasbihat, Subhana Rabbi al-Ala, Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, to send salutations upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you miss the sunnah, you don't have to make it up by doing a sajda. Your prayer is fine, your wudu is fine, but it is actually, out of, the sheer being a sunnah is enough for us to, again, to make effort to complete the sunnah acts, whether it is in the prayer.
Yeah, and what's the reason for that to be two types of sunnah? What's the difference? Sorry, go on.
Very, very good. So I was going to come to that. The sunnah muakkada are those sunnah which he sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to perform regular. Okay. So if we look at nowadays in the month of Ramadan, let's take an example of the i'tikaf. So the i'tikaf is a sunnah muakkada, a sunnah which he continuously did. It's not wajib, but it's sunnah muakkada. If one or two people do it in the mosque, it's fine. If they perform the i'tikaf, it is enough. That is a muakkada, something which he did constantly. So that's why we do some of the prayers during the day are done regular. Others we do it from time to time. So the ghair muakkada are those which he sometimes used to perform. Every now and then he used to perform those.
Sheikh, did you like that question from Brother Sajid? He asked you two good questions there.
Mashallah, very good.
Yeah, don't worry, you can have some tea. He doesn't really ask many more good ones, but I'm just pointing out the good ones that he does ask. We've just got a question by text message. It says here, Assalamu alaikum, brother. I have a question for the Sheikh. My question is in regards to mortgages. What is the ruling on this when buying a house? And that's from Brother Hamza Khan. Thanks, Brother Hamza Khan. Hope you and your family are okay.
All these questions, inshallah, I am actually making note of them, and we will get them, in the order, inshallah. Just to make sure there's some continuity in the show, inshallah. So now, we've explained what halal is, we've explained what haram is, we've explained what Islamic law is, what is fiqh, and we've talked about what is fard, and we talked about wajib, and we talked about sunnah muakkada, ghair muakkada. Okay, now in terms of, we think everything is haram, but under haram there are different categories as well. So Sheikh, what is makrooh in Islam?
Yeah, so very, very good. So the haram, obviously, we must keep away from. For instance, killing, usury, shirk. Obviously, this is the number one. Haram is the shirk, and then also types of food which are haram. Things which are makrooh.
What is makrooh, first of all?
Yeah.
Disliked.
So the makrooh are those actions which are disliked.
Like supporting Liverpool Football Club, for example.
Yeah.
Please, Sheikh, do a fatwa on this right now, and I'll send you a crate of iron brew. Me and Brother Nassim will deliver it ourselves. Come on, Sheikh, you're in Rochdale. Everyone knows about iron brew in Rochdale.
So there's
me and Brother Nassim will drop it off.
So there is the dislike, which is at the top, Makrooh Tanzihi, and which is the one which we talk about. For instance, issues regarding smoking, or some issues regarding monetary transactions. They come under the ruling of Makrooh Tanzihi, and there are those makruhat which are not as high as the Makrooh Tanzihi. They're just makruh. They're just disliked.
Okay, and then you've got other rulings like mustahab and mubah. So what are they, please?
Yeah. So before we come to mustahab, then after makruh, then we have those things which are allowed. Mustahab are those acts which come in the allowed actions. For instance, when you talk about farad, wajib, sunnah, we have mustahab at the bottom. So they're the four main categories. Then when you come to the disallowed, the haram, you talk about the haram, makrooh, makrooh tanzihi. But then you have, even in the haram, you have things which are allowed, mubah. So they're not as disliked or as haram as the others. So they're mubah.
Okay. So what is just not to complicate, what's the difference between mustahab and mubah?
Yeah, so mustahab is something which it is more sort of advised to perform that action. Mubah is more that you keep away from it. So because it comes under the haram sort of category.
Okay, that's fine. So what is the importance of us knowing what is halal and haram? Why should we know all this?
Yeah, so it's a very, very important. I mean, if as human beings, as Muslims, if we are not aware of the kifaya, which is the basic of the deen, up to the limit of we can, go out, we can buy food, we can shop, we could deal with people, monetary dealings, we could speak with people. I mean, otherwise we'd be left to our own whims and desires. And Allah mentions that, had I left the insan without a clear path, he would start to use his own, desires, his thinking, and that would lead him astray. Yeah, and that would lead him down the path of the shaitan, where he actually becomes your guide. So somebody needs to be there for our guidance, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Otherwise, there'll be the shaitan and others who will take that role.
So the importance of knowing this is so we know how to live our life according to Islam, to follow the example of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yeah. Okay. So what if we don't follow the teachings of Islam? What are there any kind of punishments when it comes to not following Islam?
Yeah, so for instance, a Muslim, if he is unaware of a certain ruling, then he may ask, the scholars, the local imam, the local, shura members. But the main thing is that if he goes against, obviously, the commandments, or he breaks the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is a punishment up to the point where he continues on this sin without repenting. So Allah gives him or her a time to rectify or to find out. If somebody is performing an act without knowledge, then he or she, Allah knows, will not be asked about this issue. If he's deliberately doing it after knowing firmly that this is something which is haram, then for sure, yes, this is something which Allah tells us in the Quran, that those who sin and continue with their sin, then for them will be a disastrous, a horrible punishment awaiting them in the hereafter. So there is a great warning against going against the halal of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, falling into the haram.
And these warnings, Sheikh, are these warnings from us, me, you? Who are these warnings from? Where are these warnings come from?
Yeah, so the warnings that those who go against the وَمَن يَبْتَغِ غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينٍ, these are some of the ayahs which are mentioned in the Madini Surah. So the Madini Surahs, as we know, they were revealed in Medina, and these were direct warnings towards the Muslims who rebelled and who transgressed and who broke the limits of, for instance, of the halal and the haram. The capital punishment was there and is still there in certain countries, but ultimately it is for the human being and for the insan himself to realize what mistake he or she is making and to rectify their way. Allah always gives us time, but the warning is there for us, for ourselves, for our benefit, that we are able to come back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, come back to the natural way of Islam.
Okay. Yeah, I've just got, sorry, brother, I just got a couple of quick text messages. One of them here is from a non-Muslim listener. It says, please do not read out my name. I am not a follower of Islam. However, I do respect religions and I am curious at present. I just want to say that your, I think it's saying vicar, but I think with respect, it's referring to the imam. Yeah, he's spot on and his explanations are seeming to make sense to me, even though I do not understand fully your religion. So thanks for that. I appreciate your text message. Another one here. It says here, no, I'm not going to ring that one out. But another one here, it's from a sister, and it's saying, will we have enough time to be able to go through the Q&A? Because all the questions that we've been sending in, they are not being answered at the moment. We're going through a process, which is what Brother Sajid normally does, so that people can be informed. And then, don't believe you me, the questions will come thick and fast. I just wanted to ask Brother Naseem, because I've had a couple of questions here. You know, when it goes to the punishment for haram, as far as the Quran, the Noble Quran is concerned, what do you say from that point of view, Brother Naseem? People who deliberately go out of their way to commit haram. And let's give you an example: usury. When it's when it's forbidden, people saddle people's backs with high interest rates, and they'll never be able to pay it back. What is the ruling, or what does the Quran say about people who commit haram?
Well, specifically about usury, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala very clearly, categorically states that anybody who is embroiled with this has declared a war against Allah and the Messenger. So you've got to look at this in terms of for us, we're not here to judge anybody else, but for them, they need to decide, are they Muslim or not? And, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, no Muslim declares war against Allah and the Messenger, right? So we've got to ultimately decide, do we want to be Muslim? And if the answer is no to that, then it's like one guy said to me that you believe that all non-Muslim, he said to me, I'm atheist, I don't believe there is a hereafter, right? Because I'm going to turn to dust. But you believe that I'm going to go to hell. How dare you, right? And I said to him, I said, well, if there is no hereafter for you, then what are you worried about? What I believe? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, because you're not going to be around.
So really, decide for themselves. If they feel comfortable in taking it, I'm saying it's haram for me. Okay, I don't want to be the one declaring war against Allah and the Messenger. It's haram for me. It's very, very important I stay away from that. If it's not, then subhanallah, what am I to do that?
Jazakallah. Okay, Sheikh, and you know, from what we're saying is every question that is being asked, inshallah, will all the questions be asked. Some of the questions that we're going through now are questions that we've already been sent to us before the show. So I'm trying to make sure that any text messages or any questions that have been sent to us, they're all answered, inshallah. So, Sheikh, if I can go through a few more questions with yourself. One of the questions that we received was, can we do haram and repent later as we do it anyway? Okay, so yeah, so what would you say to that?
Yeah, sin now, pay later. A new promo.
I would say to this person, mashallah, he has knowledge of the unseen, so we need to be close to this person. If he can guarantee that,
Sheikh, this might be the guy who's thick about the thick. You never know.
Subhanallah, this person has, mashallah, some great qualities. I mean, if he knows that he's going to live for even a minute after his haram, then he is a genius. And you know, I would say really on that when we sin, we could actually die sinning. So we have no guarantee to making tawbah. So that's why Allah mentions that take heed before you actually commit the sin, because only Allah knows when that person will have an opportunity to make tawbah. We don't even know how long we have, from today, from tomorrow. So this person is being very, very bold and logic, but I don't think the logic makes sense because he has no knowledge of his own life.
I think that's a fantastic answer, because we don't know how long we're going to live for. So if you have committed a sin, we don't know if you're going to have time to repent for it later. So the best thing is don't commit that sin and try to follow the halal. Let me just go on to the next question.
Just so that whether that was a brother or a sister, can you borrow me 20 grand, please? I'll give you back next time I see you. Because I'm never going to see you after that.
Okay.
Me and brother Nassim will be eating jalebis and slapping it down with cold iron brew.
In Barbados.
Yeah, with our feet up, but not pointing in the wrong direction.
Okay. Sheikh, I've got a very important question here. This is saying that, is there a difference between committing haram in Islam and breaking UK law? And for example, they put in the text message, if I claim to be divorced and claim the benefits, but I haven't done the talaq. That's what they give as an example. So what would you say to that, where people, they basically, are trying to kind of do a bit of a fraud here, aren't you? So what would you say?
Yeah, so basically you've answered it, Sajid. Frauding anyone, whether it is the government, whether it is a brother, it is haram. Frauding is not allowed in Islam anyway. Unless the sister has been divorced and she's gone through the UK court, then there is no harm in her claiming her right. But when it comes to benefit, obviously we know deep inside ourselves really what is right when we are claiming for job seekers, for unemployment.
But I don't think we do. Sheikh, sorry to interrupt you, I don't think we do. I think that case is very, very common. I come across it where people say, listen, we have not done an Islamic talaq. We've not done one. If we go and send the courts, the Gora courts, the white courts, any court you want, and we go and tell them, look, we're divorced, we're doing it, and we're taking money off the state. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, so, in that situation, just them saying it, that they're divorced, their marriage is finished, even in the Islamic, in Sharia. So if they are having relationship, together, that comes under zina. So So one, they are taking from the state what does not belong to them. The other thing is they're also committing a sin of zina, which we know the punishment for it and in this one and the hereafter. So there is no cheating, there's no frauding, there's no tax scams, VAT scams. These are all things which the Sharia has made clear that when you are deceiving Allah, His Prophet, and another human being. So, you know, when you talk about fiqh and it does not cover the mu'amilat has the most detail in fiqh, even more than your ibadat. So the ibadat, the worship will have a couple of volumes. The mu'amalat, the mutual relationships, the day-to-day dealings will have 10, 15 volumes with the sheer amount of information.
Just hold the thought right there, because I now need to ask Brother Naseem. Brother Naseem, the Sheikh now there has elaborated and expanded on a very, very important thought to me. And that is, when people commit fraud, very clear, there's no place in Islam for that person. That Islam doesn't say that, okay, you've not said it in front of a Maulvi, you've not called him over, so your divorce could be enacted. But the question I'm putting to you, as somebody who will know this more than anybody else, brother, you know, when we take somebody else's haq through our own greed, and that welfare system, and that benefit system, and you come across children, women, men, mothers, fathers, who don't get anything, what is the impact of that?
I mean, it's detrimental impact, isn't it? I mean, we know that because we see so many people who are then looked upon with a microscope to investigate and assess intrusively whether they need to come along and prove that they are, you know, they're the rightful beneficiaries to this welfare. Now,
an example of that would be what?
Well, example of that there are people. There's a young man that's been he's got no status in the country. He was supposed to be getting indefinite leave to remain. There's been a mess up in the system, and now he's being investigated. He's on £57 a week, but from that, just his rent is £42 or £43 in a little bedsit. He's
£10.
Yeah, he's living on less. He's living on less than, you know what, £14, £15, £16 a week for food, for electric, for gas, for everything else. How is that possible? You know, and because he's gone through this massive test, intrusive assessment that he's gone through, and they do not believe that you know he is poor as poor. He says he is as poor as he is.
Yeah,
but he's got no status. Now, let me come back to this talaq thing, right? If, for instance, you are, you know, in Islamically, you do not need a Maulana, an Imam, to conduct your nikah. Any person can witness it, 2 witnesses, haq meher, and the person who's doing the conducting, right? And there's got to be that. That's it. Khalas. His nikah is done. Now, similarly, talaq is very similar. Okay. However, talaq has some prerequisites, post-requisites. But if you've gone through the trouble of getting a talaq with your wife through the court of England or Wales or Scotland or Ireland, right, in the UK, you've gone to the trouble of applying for a divorce through the courts in England. Your divorce is valid. You have talaqed your wife. She is haram for you. Khalas. So if you've gone through that process and you say, well, I didn't give a talaq, but I have divorced her, sorry, brother, the talaq is just the Arabic name for divorce.
Okay, Jazakallah.
The reason, Brother Sajid, why I wanted to bring that right round to everybody is because of the impact on the social element and the fabric of society and how people are dismissing this. And from my understanding, I want to add this even more. That number one, there's different schools of thoughts when it comes to talaq, isn't there? Some people say it's instant. Some people say there's a delay. Let's compromise. Let's say that it's instant or it's a delay. Well, when you apply, you don't get the benefits tomorrow morning. It's not instant. They will ask you that question more than once, and you'll have to reply to it more than once. And that benefit system can take a while. So
the divorce process in this country, my brother, can take a year to do.
Yeah.
There's a whole process. You've got to apply for the divorce. Then there is a statement from both parties. Then there's a decree in eyesight. Then after that, there's a decree absolute if there is no objection. So there's a whole process involved in that. And once you've exhausted that process, you are divorced. You are now available to remarry someone else. So how can you defraud the system and think that that's okay because I haven't given my wife talaq? That's just nonsensical.
Okay, Jazakallah.
Okay, what's the next question, Brother Sajid?
Right,
Before you do that, I'll just give the message number out because We've had a couple more messages which I'll tag on to the end. Please send us a text 07801 951 501. You're listening to Let's Talk. My name is Zaid Makbul, and we also have the editor of The Revival, Brother Sajid. We have Brother Naseem, and we have Sheikh Mirazam with us as well. Not Brother Imran, who was disappeared earlier on. Brother Sajid.
Yes, I've got 3-4 questions here, which are about in terms of what we're allowed to eat in terms of food. So let me chuck these out if I can share. So the first one is can I eat any meat, or does it need to be halal?
So meat, the category of meat has been explained. So in the ayah in Surah Al-Ma'idah, we are told that you're allowed to eat, but there are certain exceptions. For instance, swine meat, pig meat, the dead, the one which has died before slaughtering, the blood, that which has been slaughtered for other than the name of Allah. As long as those 4 or 5, 6 categories are not present, then any meat which has had the name of Allah being mentioned upon it is allowed for you. Now, for instance, cattle, sheep, chicken, lamb. Some scholars have allowed donkey, horse as well, but this is a minority opinion that you're allowed to eat the meat of donkey, horses. The Hanaf, they say no, it's categorically they are there for your means, for you to use them for your day-to-day sort of transportation. So we are not allowed to eat dogs, for instance, cattle, dogs, cats, these sort of things which are your pets. You're not allowed to use them at all for your consummation. Only for consuming, you're only allowed the halal cattle, which the category has been mentioned both in Surah Al-Ma'idah and also in Surah Al-A'raf and Surah Al-An'am.
Okay, mashallah. Now, in terms of, I've got another question here, is can I eat food of the Ahlul Kitab? So can I eat food of Jews and Christians? Yes.
Yeah, so there are 2 ayahs in the Quran which mention that you're allowed to eat the meat of Ahlul Kitab as long as they have slaughtered it. Even in the time of the Prophet ﷺ in Medina, they used to slaughter it with the name of Allah, not on the name of Jesus Christ and the name of Uzair. So this ruling applied up to the point where there was another ayah which revealed that from now only that which is pure and halal you are able to eat. Now, for instance, if your neighbors are Christian and they invite you for dinner, for food, and they buy for you non-halal meat, because nowadays I do not know of any Christian, maybe Brother Naseem might know of any Christian that slaughters even in the way of Jesus or in the name of Jesus. Even up to that point, there are some concessions. But when it comes to beyond that, when they are slaughtering on the names of others and not even slaughtering it properly, then this becomes under the heading of maita, which is dead meat, which we are not allowed to eat unless it is slaughtered accordingly to the Sharia and to the halal ways.
Okay, so does that mean then we can't go to Tesco, to Sainsbury's and so forth and get the meat from there? We can only get the meat from there if it's from the halal section, I understand.
Yeah. So, brother, there was actually a fatwa which was given about 20 years ago, but you got to remember things have changed with time. You have many halal shops in Oldham, in Rochdale. The halal meat is available, and so we should make effort to buy from them. If there is a counter in Tesco and Asda, there's no harm in buying from them either, as long as it has the stamp and it is certified halal meat.
Okay, thank you.
We've had a controversial question here. And it says that all of this is a scam. And this halal business is a scam. It's basically to look after the halal butchers, and we should be allowed to eat any chicken we want. Where does it say anywhere the animal is actually halal? The process is sunnah. We should be allowed to eat any chicken from anywhere we please. It isn't dead meat.
Yeah, so this is really a question which has arisen from so we've had certain organizations, I don't want to name them, who will insist on their sort of stamps on meat. Yeah, so that is, I'm against that. I'm not for that. I'm saying if the butcher, you trust him, he's a Muslim, his word is enough. You don't have to go into too much details that where did your meat come from? Where was it stored? Has it come from New Zealand, from China? Where does it come from? No, you take his word, and the onus is upon him. He's responsible for what he says. If it turns out that he's been frauding you, then you obviously go somewhere else and you buy your meat elsewhere. So yes, I agree with the brother or sister who's saying let's not give it too much sort of protocol or too much importance in that sense, but do your basic research, your basic finding out, because there is a difference, as Brother Naseem will probably tell you, between the halal meat and the non-halal meat in its structure, in its being itself.
Absolutely, and I think this is very, very important that you've got to understand that. Number one, the meat today in this country is shot, is bolted right in the head. It's not stunned. It's not slaughtered. The blood is not let. So that is sunnah. I accept that. However, as Sheikh said, it's nonsensical to walk past 17 halal butchers to go into Tesco's just to eat that. Number two. Number three.
Yeah, but look at the prices, brother. You know, 17 are even a quid on their own.
You can buy 3 baby chickens for £5, my brother. 3 baby chickens. You don't have to buy, for £2.99 one piece of chicken meat. It's
They're
just
chickens, are they? Saj, do you call them chichi or something, or chuche or something?
There's one more thing on this. Right, which is this: that if the country is Ahle Kitab, now Ahle Kitab means that the book was revealed upon them. It doesn't mean they followed it. Right? The people who followed the book at that time were known as Muslims. Right? But it means Ahl Kitab means the book was revealed upon them. Now, if the country is Ahl Kitab, i.e. the country is Muslim, and they follow the Christian ways, they follow the Jewish ways, and they Ahl Kitab, they call me Yahud, and their meat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, is halal. All right? Their women are halal and their meat is halal. Okay. That's fine. We don't call it haram. No problem at all with that. However, like I said at the beginning, that you walk past 17 Pakistani Muslim butchers to go to Tesco's to eat that, then, well, halas, what can I say to that?
Okay.
And let me tell you about something else. It's actually no big deal. There is absolutely no big deal with it. Whether they eat it or they don't eat it. What people are so hell-bent on and stick on is that their chicken must be halal even if their rizq isn't.
That's the point.
Important. They'll walk into a restaurant with a girlfriend and have wine on the table, yet they insist that the chicken should be halal. This is pathetic.
Yep. It is indeed. Okay. Jazakallah there, Brother Naseem, saying it how it is, as always, mashallah. Okay. Now, I'm getting quite a lot of different questions. So, Sheikh, we've got the question on the screen there as well, and there's 2-3 questions asking about this as well. Interest we know is haram. Why do some scholars or imams say getting an interest mortgage is okay? Something many of us need help with. I'm trying to sell my house as its interest. So, Sheikh, what is the ruling here in terms of when it comes to mortgage?
Yeah, so this is a contemporary issue. I mean, mortgage is something which is really on everyone's mind, especially those who are working, our brothers and sisters who have a career. Now, there has been some scholars who have made mortgages or halal in certain circumstances. Now, why have they made it halal? There's 2 aspects to it. First, the interest that we know as in our times differs from the interest at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So there was no banks that were lending money and they were expecting 2%, 5%, 10% return. There were people who were lending gold and silver. They were lending dirham and dinar, and even they were profiting on it, but there were certain conditions which made that transaction allowed. So the context and the actual what we are dealing with is completely different. So this is why some of the scholars have made exception. Now, there's another exception which comes to that we are living in a non-Muslim country. That is false. That is completely against the Sharia. It is against the fiqh. It's also against the teachings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Number 2. Number 3, the reason why they gave an allowance is because there's nobody ready to. So the best, I mean, obviously the ideal situation would be that people would help each other. Now, amongst Muslims, we are scared to even lend someone £10 because he might or she might not come back to you for the next whole year. So this is the ultimate sort of solution, that we have people who can lend each other money. They can buy themselves houses. Now, this is still happening amongst the Jews. The Jews will never go to the banks to look for a mortgage. They will actually help each other when it comes to buying a house. Now, that's the model Islam wants us to apply, but that's not there, unfortunately, at the moment. Now, those who have made it halal, they have made it a condition that it's necessity. So when we have a necessity, you are even allowed to eat the pork. Yeah, so that is the only way or only situation where you're allowed to buy your first house, one house only, out of necessity. If renting, for instance, is not an option, then they have made this an allowance, a darura, which will, put aside the haram or the things which are disliked in Islam. So that is really just a sort
Yes,
of a summary.
I think, yeah, that's a really good answer. And I think the thing to understand here is not that scholars are making something halal which
Mm,
Allah and His Prophet have made haram. I think because Islam is for all times. And in this day and age, if you want people to support their family, to support their wife and children, sometimes renting is not an option, and sometimes it's not a safe or permanent option. And but the Zaid will know better on this. But so that's why I think when it comes to buying a house, you are there, and as the Sheikh said, it's not like you can buy three on mortgage. You buy one
mm.
out of necessity, and you try to pay off that mortgage as quickly as you can. Is that not right with the Zaid in terms of?
Yeah, I'm obviously I know a thing or two about mortgages, and my understanding of this is exactly what the Sheikh said, that if a person has to have a home, that is a necessity. If that person, that sister, buys a house, that is the best possible thing for them. I would strongly advise never to rent. If you rent, you're paying somebody else's mortgage, and you've seen with these in certain times how a house is vital. Try your very best to buy. I'm going to say a couple of controversial things. As somebody who deals with repossessions, I wouldn't advise any of these so-called Islamic compliant mortgages either. Because ultimately, look at the high street banks. The interest rate, inshallah, as me and Brother Naseem have talked about in the past, is going to fall below 0%.
Inshallah.
At the moment, it's 0.25%. It's the lowest it's ever been in the history. And there is talk of a negative interest rate. If you have a negative interest rate, try your very best to pay that mortgage off. Now, if you buy a house, modest house for your own keeping, and you buy that and you sell it, and with that profit, you buy another house and you rent it, great. But what I think is wrong is where people do this. They go to the council, they apply for a council house, they then rent that council house out and go and sleep with their in-laws. That's haram. Another speciality is that a person goes to get a so-called Islamic mortgage product. They say, oh, there's no interest on this. And then they look at it. The rental figure is the equivalent of 12%, 8%. How is that good for them in comparison to what's out there at the moment? A house is the building blocks and the fabric of anybody's house. Sorry, their life. And that's what they need. That's what they need to do. Just one last point on mortgages. Always get advice with recommendation. And if you're not sure what that means, contact me. I don't sell mortgages, but so many people fall into the trap, Brother Sajid, where their uncle's going to charge him 500 quid. He'll sort the mortgage out. Mortgage fraud is not permissible. That's another element of mortgage. Get the mortgage under your own rights. If you're unsure, I can help. But do not make up things, because if you make something up and it was a fraud, then that mortgage is haram in the first place.
Okay, Jazakallah. Brilliant words there from Zaid. So, Sheikh, let me just go through a few more questions just on this point as well. I mean, we've talked about mortgage and we talked about interest. So the next question then comes that people are asking is, can you get a loan from the bank which involves interest, and can you buy something on credit?
Yeah, so the same the same policy applies with halal with mortgages and loans. Conventional, we're talking about conventional banks now. So if you need to buy, for instance, a car or something for the house, again, if it's absolutely necessity and you know yourself that you must do with this item, then you buy it, as long as you know how much you need to pay back, what the time limit is, as long as there's no ambiguity in the transaction. But really, what I would say on that point is that the house, we spoke about the importance of a house, of a second, that it is really the base for your family. But sometimes we go above board when it comes to, do we need something or do we just desire something? So there has to be a difference in that point.
So,
now,
for example,
what this leads,
sorry, I was just going to say, for example, some people buy a car, a really nice posh car, on credit. is that necessity? Some people will buy like a fridge or will buy like a Hoover or etc. etc. Is that a necessity? Can you not buy like a cheap one?
I have to correct you, Brother Sajid. You mean a vacuum cleaner? You're advertising a particular brand again. And are
I
you
do apologize.
sponsored by Hoover? Are you sponsored by Hoover?
Yeah, I am actually, yeah.
Right. So we talk, you know, we see it all the time, don't we? Oh, it was a necessity. I had to go and buy this teeny weeny Lamborghini. It was a necessity. Was it a necessity? Or did you need to get from A to B? And then as your risk increases, when you're risking, you need to purify that. Brother Naseem, if we give to the community, that's how we get onto the bigger car. We don't get it by being on some sort of, demented merry-go-round of finance and we're just buying it. I had to buy necessity, Brother Sajid. This little Lamborghini is my necessity. Not only to
coffee machine was necessity and all.
Yeah.
So finance on it.
So on
coffee
that point,
machine,
then,
she's asleep at the moment. I can't wake her up just now.
so on that point, then, Sheikh, then when it comes to loans from the bank or when it comes to credits, are we saying that are they still permissible, or does it has to be if it's only out of necessity?
Yeah, so again, the scholars who talk about the halal loan, for instance, insurance, we know it is haram in Islam. Insurance is something which we're not allowed to take out due to the ambiguity that lies that you never know when you're going to be involved in an accident, when you're going to use it. But because the law states that you must have insurance, it has been made that yes, you can take an insurance policy on your car, on your house, etc. But I would say that when it comes to personal finance or personal sort of loans, etc., this is a slippery slope which a lot of people fall into. And what happens, we see oppression, we see dhulm, which goes against the beauty of the religion, that we don't want to put people in a situation where they are taking out credit cards, mortgages, loans, etc., which they cannot afford to buy. So don't forget the situation that we are living in. It's a very, very materialistic world where people are competing with each other. So we need to really go back to the basics and help each other with sadaqah, with lending money to each other, with trust, and I would say keep away from any of the banks for your day-to-day things, for your cars, etc. You can do that, inshallah, without going into debt, more debt on top of your mortgage, because we usually see people, how much stress they go through, the family breakups, the children suffer. So this is really a problem upon problem which we don't see any end to, and eventually what happens, like Brother Zahid mentioned, the repossession rate and taking your stuff from you. This is something which Islam completely does not want a human to go through. His human dignity is the most important thing for him at this time,
Okay.
really.
Jazakallah. But Zaid,
Yep. Salam here to Brother Mani and Brother Shabzi. Hope you're okay. Salam, nice to see you back. Hope you're well, Ramzan. Still going school. Give my salam and good luck for those. Thanks, Brother Mani, for that one. Got a couple of questions that came through. So let me just quickly find it. Here we go. Right. Assalamu alaikum. I read a post recently stating that we should not use abbreviations such as SWT after Allah's name or PBUH, etc., and should be typing the full words. What is the Sheikh's view on this? I'm from Brother Ayaz.
Sheikh, you might as well answer that now, if that's okay. So when we are saying Allah, do we need to say, are we okay to write down SWT, or do we need to say Subhanahu wa
In
ta'ala?
a text message or...
It's fine. It doesn't lessen the power, the might of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by writing it in its full essence. It doesn't, it's not a sign of disrespect. So I think these things we shouldn't really, dwell on them too much. And we shouldn't be focusing on the small issues. Rather, we have bigger issues that we need to focus upon. As long as this person has it in his heart that he's not degrading Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's not degrading the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then I don't see any harm in using abbreviation, etc., for the names. This is just something aside, I think.
Yep.
Got some more text messages here, and this one here is from somebody called themselves Rajasab. It says here, brothers, just wanted to say, listening to your show by recommendation from Glasgow, and I'm having to self-isolate, so I'll be picking up all your other shows and listening to them. Great show, great topic, and fantastic scholar. Thanks for that, my brother. Another one here, and this is from brother W, it says here, brother, can you give us a shout? We're from Longside. Yes, W from Longside. Assalamu alaikum to you and your families. A sister here, no name wants to be used. It says, brothers, this is the show we really like because you've got really good scholars. I like the fun and laugh and jokes. I also like that we can ask any questions. Keep up the good work. Another one here, and this is from, there's no name on this one. Brothers, when it comes to haram and halal, I have really learned a lot today. Thank you.
Mashallah,
Another one
mashallah.
here, and this is, again, unnamed. It says that the different levels of haram and halal, the wajid, I didn't know any of these things. It was your funny joke that made me listen to the radio more, and I've made some notes. Thanks for that, brother. Another one here, it says, brother Sajid asked some amazing questions. Leave him alone, you beast, Zahid. Sajid, have I offended your good lady? Another one here, it says here, brother, when it comes to halal and haram, you guys have hit the nail on the head, especially the knockout. He does not hold any punches. And he has told us, because I am sat with two people who are now looking at the floor after the brother knocked him out.
Mashallah, mashallah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll just get the very, very last one. Yeah, the last one again is talking about Islamic mortgages, and they've asked a specific question about a specific lender. I can help with that, no problem at all there. You don't have to pay anybody for any kind of advice. Most of this stuff's pretty straightforward that I can handle with here. The very, very last one, and this is from a group that listen to our show through our YouTube channel. Brothers, your show is amazing. Your scholars are amazing. You have fun, you have laughter, you also have knowledge. And for this reason, we wait for your shows. And you keep picking on Brother Sajid, and I notice you don't pick on Brother Naseem. Nobody picks on Brother Naseem. That's the point. That's why he's left alone.
That's why he's a knockout, yeah.
That's why he's the knockout.
Okay, Sheikh, if I can ask you just a few more questions, if that's okay. We've got
Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
We've got a question on the screen there saying that we live in a capital society, and although Islam encourages trade and commerce, how does or can Islam and capitalism coexist?
Yeah, so very, very important. I mean, when we look at the halal model of trade, it becomes clear that you will become self-sufficient. You will become of a sort of level where you can support yourself, your family, your children, and that is what Islam wants from you. Islam wants from men that they can provide for their wives, for their children, in a respectful way. Now, if Islam was about becoming millionaires and becoming charitable, that's something which can be achieved, but that is not the purpose. The purpose is Allah will give you your rizq, in this world, as much as what is good for you, and as much as what you can spend on others. When it comes to capitalism, I don't think we should be comparing Islamic model to capitalism, because capitalism is something which is completely opposite to the ethics of Islam. Islam focuses on the rights of human beings, not to oppress them, and also it focuses very, very importantly on the structure of the family, that how we are able to give time to our family, to our businesses, to our studies, and that the work does not take over the lives of the Muslims. So to put in the same sentence as capitalism, I'd say is probably not just. And I would say take the rulings which Allah has given us from the halal way of earning your money. It might be less than your normal sort of capitalistic work, but you will see that the barakah, the blessing that you will find in it, will be far greater.
Okay, Jazakallah Sheikh. Just got a question here in terms of we got earlier in terms of is it allowed or permissible to receive the benefits from the government in terms of housing benefit, in terms of different kind of benefits? Is that halal or haram?
Yeah. So let me just get rid of one misconception, that people believe that because we are living in the non-Muslim government, non-Muslim land, that we can do whatever we want. This is completely false. Now, when it comes to benefits, if you are deserving of those benefits, then fine. Yes, if you are somebody who's poor, who needs the help of the state, then you should take that help. But if you are somebody who's working, on the side and earning and signing on, this is where it comes under fraud, and you are basically earning your haram living without being open, without being honest about your earnings. So those, just to summarize it, those who need the help, it is actually upon the state to provide them with the help. Just as the time, don't forget, social justice was something initiated by our great Caliph Umar ibn Abdulaziz, which he actually showed the West how to have a just socialist country where the government looks after the poor, takes from the rich and gives to the poor, and they're able to allow the wealth to be distributed equally. Now, there's nothing wrong with receiving help from the government if it's something that you need. And I would actually say that is something that you must do and you must actually apply for if you need it.
Jazakallah. We just got a question, just on the same topic, more or less on the screen, which is what does the Sheikh view on life insurance?
So life insurance is, again, it's a problem because we have insurance as a whole is something which is not allowed. And for you to actually put a premium on yourself that when you die, your wife gets a certain amount, again, this goes contrary to the teachings of Islam, that every life and death belongs in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even when you are not here, He will provide for you after you go. Now, there are certain circumstances where this becomes a must. So certain policies you must take life insurances with, and that I would say you take advice from those who are more aware of the financial situation in the area. But as a general rule, I would say no. I would say keep away from any insurance that you do not have to take as a compulsory part of any sort of deal, any mortgage, etc.
Okay, Jazakallah.
Got some more questions that have come through here. The first one, in fact, before we go through that, it looks like Sheikh Mirazam Saab is building up quite a fan club here, because we've had at least 8 text messages, one after the other, saying, brother, you found another superb scholar. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with him. Another one here, it says, simply amazing. Another one here, it says, uplifting answers from the Sheikh. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with him. Another one here, brother Zaid, you need to be more respectful to the scholar, because you're not very nice to him. I am nice to him. I just got his name wrong, that's all. But I did volunteer, didn't I, brother Naseem, to go into the cooker position, and maybe I need to do that at the end of the show. So there's a couple of questions that's come through. Now, does Islam allow us to go out of our way to protect and not give any tax? So as a result of that, my understanding is that I can get an accountant to give them a certain figure that would then entitle me to claim benefits. So I am keeping within the fold of Islam. So what the person is saying there, Sheikh, is that they are paying tax, and they're paying the minimum tax. So they're paying usually about £10,900. They go to an accountant. How much do you earn? £500,000. Great, I'll put that down at £10,900. Now you can go and claim housing benefit and anything else that you need. So he's saying he's paying, and what he's saying is that within his understanding of fiqh, and this may well be another mufti that we don't know about, he says that Islam categorically tells us to protect our income. In other words, we can put the tax man, leave a little scent trail from him. Are you okay with that, brother Sajid?
I am, yeah.
Yeah. So as far as that is concerned, what do you say when people say they earn more but they're actually showing less?
Isn't that fraud?
I say it's fraud. I say it's complete fraud. Declare what you're saying. See, look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's ways. We're now in the middle of this, which nobody has ever seen, which is a lockdown. Our brothers in Palestine have been living through this in 1947, but we've just come across it since March. One of the things we had, brother Sajid, during this lockdown period, for those people who could, was the furlough introduction. So you could claim up to £2,500 payment. Now, a couple of people said to me, can you help me appeal against it? How come you didn't get it? well, they won't believe what I was earning. Well, of course, they're not going to believe what you're earning because even you didn't believe what you were earning. So, you know what I'm saying? What goes around comes around. So these people who deliberately, but I want to have clarification on, Brother Sajid, what your income is, isn't that what you're supposed to declare? Or does Islam say, look, just declare what you think, right? You know, close your eyes, right if they're going to give it him.
Sheikh, if you want to clarify that, please, inshallah.
Yeah, so when it comes to mutual relationships between human beings, what we are told is that whether you are in war situation or peace situation, in war there are certain instances where you're allowed to do hila. Hila is not lying, but it's trickery in the battleground, only to benefit yourself in that situation. In peace times, there is no way that Allah will allow you to, number one, lie about your earnings, number two, to defraud the government and say that that is halal. See, this is where we're getting it wrong. This is why we are seeing problems in our communities when it comes to finances, the masajid, how they've been built, where the charity sector comes into the picture. There is no barakah. You know, we are earning 50,000-60,000 pounds a year, but at the end of the year we're left with pennies, or sometimes we're even in the negative. So I would say anything which is based upon fraud, trickery, or deceiving, it's bound to perish. It's bound to disappear within time.
Jazakallah. Sheikh, let me also ask you, how long do you have? I mean, how long? I can ask questions all night. So you let me know how long do you have?
We can go on till about 12:15. It's fine, inshallah. Let Sunday kick in, so we have, inshallah, Sunday is still not far away, inshallah.
Okay, Jazakallah.
Yeah, brother, I have to, Sheikh, I have to just say, I saw while you were actually, alhamdulillah, bothering to answer questions, Sheikh Sajid was downing fizzy drinks. He's been told about this before. He's not allowed so many fizzy drinks in a year. It goes to his head. The fizzy bubbles go to his head.
MashaAllah.
Right,
Okay.
got another question about haram and halal. Brother Zaid, I asked a question earlier about an intention. Can you make an intention which is haram? For example, if I sell, and my intention is to sell narcotics. So that's what my intention is. And it turns out I make money, but from that money, I give it to the mosque. So although it was a haram intention, he wants to give the... So have you got that haram machine behind you there, Sheikh? The one that you can put money inside and make it halal?
Allahu Akbar. No. So, the Quraysh, when they were building the Kaaba, even they were careful that what they accepted for the Kaaba. And there were people who used to deal in interest, and they said to them, we're not going to accept your money. So they had to delay the rebuilding of the Kaaba prior to the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Now, this is a common question that I'm going to be dealing drugs on the street, but I'm going to give you £1,000 a month as kafara. This is completely haram. This is why we are having problems in our masajid, that they are being built on money which is dubious, suspicious, which is haram, and we don't care. And the ulama, they accept it because unfortunately they are being silent. They've been silenced in a way that they cannot speak about it. Now, I would say the intention, you will also get a sin for that wrong intention. For a good intention, Allah, if you, for instance, have an intention to rob the bank, but you don't do it, you will still get that sin. But if you make an intention to do good and you do it, you will get many rewards. But for that, just the intention, you will be also rewarded multiply. So there is reward and sin for even the intention.
Jazakallah, Sheikh.
On that one, sorry, Sajid, to interrupt you there. But the questions come back saying, I don't agree with the response from your scholar, because if I was going to have money, that money then could go into the hands of the non-Muslims. So that would strengthen the non-Muslims. So if my money is going into the Muslim hand, it is better than going into the non-Muslim hand.
Okay, so let me just understand the question. So this brother or sister wants to sell narcotics, drugs, yeah? And he wants to, the money which he gets from it, he wants to donate it to the masjid, yeah? So
he wants to donate it to Muslims, it says here.
So firstly, the transaction becomes haram in itself. Now, when a transaction is haram, any profit or any gains that he gets from it that also becomes haram. So he's feeding his family, he's paying the masjid. These are all avenues which the haram money will not be accepted in either way. Now, the excuse is that if I'm not doing it, someone else will be doing it. That's upon him. That's not upon you to decide. He will be sinning on his behalf, and you'll be sinning on what you are doing. So that is, I would say, it's a straw man argument that you say that I'm not doing it, someone else is doing it. It will actually not work. It's like saying other people are killing, so I'm going to start killing as well. No, we have our ethics, we have our adab, we have our mannerism, and until we actually stick to that, then Allah is not going to help us. He's not going to bring blessings. He's not going to bring barakah in our livelihood. So, and I think this is a common theme, common problem we are seeing in a lot of towns and cities, and that's why the parents are really fearful, or they're unable to speak against drug dealing or illegal means of earning money, and they make excuses which really have nothing to do with
Okay,
our beautiful
mashallah.
Sharia.
Jazakallah, Sheikh. I just want to do a bit of some questions, some quick fire ones, if it's okay, but only if you feel that it requires a short answer. So I've got a few questions here, and we are talking about narcotics and so forth. So we've got two questions. One is smoking weed allowed, or is it haram? What is the ruling? And secondly, shisha. Is shisha also allowed in Islam as well?
Yeah, so both of them, I would say, that because they are actually harming your body, you actually, you're sending yourself into destruction with your own hands. I would say they are actually haram. You should keep away from them.
With shisha, I mean, I don't know if any of these guys will know better. With shisha, some people say that there is nothing in there that's haram. It's water, it's fruit, it's tobacco. There's nothing haram in there. So why would shisha be haram? Is what the question is.
So yeah, so if there's no tobacco, if it's just water and you're just blowing into water, then there is no intoxication happening. There is no sort of tobacco in the shisha. But I don't know. I've never actually smoked shisha, so I wouldn't know how it actually is. But if it's anything which is sakran, which makes you intoxicated, then I would say it is ultimately, again, from weed, for instance, people make some excuses that it actually is good for your pain relief, etc. Again, it's trying to make something halal, which is haram in its essence.
Zayed, do you want to on
Yeah.
the shisha? Are you?
Yeah.
You know,
So in terms of the shisha, there's 3 types of shisha that I'm aware of. There are now shishas where people are putting weed inside them. So then people say no, though there is. There are unscrupulous places where they're replacing the element of charcoal and they're putting actual cannabis inside it, or they're putting a weed inside it. That is clearly not just haram, but that's illegal at the same time.
Okay.
The second one is a shisha where it's like a cigarette. Well, the ruling of the cigarette is the cigarette carries tobacco, carries nicotine. Nicotine has health labels all across it saying it's going to cause cancer. Cancer, anything that you do like that is negative. So as a result of that, we can say categorically, at one point you said, when I grew up, these were cigarettes were Makrooh, they were disliked. Now more scholars say, because of the scientific proof that we've got, it's more considered to be haram. The third type of shisha is a fruit. It literally is a little bit of fruit with flavor inside it, apple, mango, and people smoke that. It's literally taking through water. There's no intoxicant in it. All that is a little bit of social fun. Now, that element of it, I don't see anything wrong, because I know that there's a few shisha dragons that I know of. The third one, where there's no nicotine in it, Sheikh, I would say that one, I don't see anything wrong with it. I don't know what your view would be.
Yeah. So the third one I wasn't aware of, to be honest with you, Brother Zai. That's the first time I've heard of it, that there's actually shisha which has no tobacco, no charcoal in it. So I mean, that's just
it literally is a plant, and they put a flavor on top of it, and then they put the foil on it. There's nothing in there that would have any kind of nicotine effect in it. So in other words, you couldn't get addicted with one of these things.
Yeah, and so again, so that there's nothing there which is dubious. There's nothing there which is ambiguous. I mean, there's nothing there which is showing that you are actually smoking the shisha,
Now,
and it's just there for, just for a social aspect, or just for just to have something in company. So I don't see what the use of that shisha would be. Would it just be there for the sake of it, or I mean, how would you?
yeah,
What would
no,
you?
no. I think it's just something to do, isn't it?
Right, right.
Very similar to eating bans. Unless you're painting
Mm,
red lines, double yellow, double red lines in London, people think there's no reason to eat a ban, but people do eat bans. Going into the cannabis
mm,
one, this is interesting, Brother Sajid, because the NHS now prescribes medicinal cannabis. So if I can remember its legal name, it's tetrahydro something. That is the legal name for cannabis. That is illegal. And that would also be haram. Now, one element of that does not make you high, but it has a medicinal property. That medicinal property is used to treat arthritis and it's used to treat other conditions. And that's a fact. So you could go to your doctor and you could have a chronic condition over a number of years. And your doctor could say, look, I want to prescribe to you this drug, CBD. It'll be cannabis-based derivative. So it's not actually full. It's not got an intoxicant element to it, but it is from that marijuana plant. That marijuana plant is a naturally growing substance. It's not being created by anybody other than that's how it is. It isn't like cocaine where it's created into labs. This is a naturally growing plant. So on that one, Sheikh, what do you say?
Are we saying CBD oil then is halal and permissible, Sheikh? Let's get an answer to this. We've got a wrong question.
Sorry, repeat the questions, Zahid. What was the question?
So with cannabis has two elements to it. It has
Yeah,
an oil, or it has a part to it, which is a natural extract.
yeah.
That next natural extract is on the NHS proven to help people with things like glaucoma, rheumatism, and pain relief. It has a second element, which causes addiction and also causes a legal high. So in other words, it's got an intoxicant. The one that's on the NHS, Sheikh, does not have an intoxicant. It's the
Yeah.
purest form, and that is given as a drug to your body. So on that front, what would you say?
Yeah, so I would say that the first type, the one which is pure, the natural herb, that's something which has been used, for centuries, even amongst the Muslims. If there's a benefit to it and there is no intoxicant sort of label to it or intoxicant effect to it, then the scholars, they say it is allowed. It is for medication purposes. If it has been tampered with or something has been added to it in order to give it that extra boost, or to give it that addiction sort of aspect of the drug, then this is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that anything which is addictive and has a negative effect on the mind, i.e. makes you lose your conscience or lose the ability to focus. And I know we speak about the negative effects of weed and cocaine, unless a product is pure and is purely for medicational purposes, and it's not addictive. The main thing is that it has not, doesn't be addictive, and people are not hooked onto it. For instance, anything which leads to addiction or the loss of the power of the mind would be categorized in the haram section. Obviously, there are benefits to them as well.
Okay. Just a couple of texts. Mate says one argument would be smoking is like eating unhealthy food. Unhealthy food can make you unhealthy, but smoking can kill. That's a fact. On with regards to drugs, an interesting point. 3 or 4 text messages centered around it. I'll summarize it. What is the most lethal drug in the world?
Alcohol.
Brother Nassim? The most lethal drug in the world.
What's the most lethal drug in the world? I think it's ego, isn't it?
Isn't it alcohol?
Well, yeah.
Ego.
It is, Brother Sajid. If alcohol was categorized in the same way that crack cocaine is, methadone is, liquid meth, if it was like that, it would actually be categorized far higher than crack cocaine. No wonder
Yeah.
Islam made alcohol a haram. On the alcohol one, there's a question that's come through, and it says here, it says, brother, I am not Muslim. Please do not get offended. I may have my history wrong, but I read that the companions of the Prophet also used to drink alcohol, just like Jesus's companions did. Why is it wrong now?
Yeah, so that is a question. It is true that the companions in the beginning, the prohibition of alcohol was revealed in 3 or 4 verses. So in 3 or 4 stages. In the beginning, they were told that keep away from the prayer, or don't come close to the prayer. But this was to make it easier for the companions to let go of that alcohol. So we have that situation amongst us. If a new Muslim enters into Islam and he is heavily addicted to alcohol, his situation will be similar to the Sahaba at that time. We're not going to say to him that, listen, brother, you've come into Islam, you must stop alcohol, you must stop this. We take it a gradual process. This is really a wisdom and really a mercy that the Quran gave us, this the category, the 3 stages of the hurmat, or the prohibition of alcohol. So yes, in the beginning, as we know, there were companions who used to come to the prayer, so they were forbidden from praying while they were drunk. But then in the end, the instruction was to keep away from alcohol, because it is it is something which is filthy for yourself, for your family, and there are many negative downsides to the alcohol, which we are seeing amongst us living in the West and living in a society which drinks, all that we're looking up, in the pubs and the clubs, how it's having an effect on our social, on our moral aspect. So as a general rule, Islam prohibits alcohol the same way it prohibits pork, wine, etc. These are all in the same category. But with alcohol, there is that element of addiction which Islam, understands, and it tries to mitigate it in a way which is beneficial for that person.
Okay, Jazakallah Sheikh. Quick questions here, if I can. First one, are we allowed to have a tattoo? First of all.
A tattoo.
And second, can we dye our hair?
Yeah, so tattoo is something which there is nothing specifically in the Quran or the Sunnah. The Prophet ﷺ, he forbade from changing the characteristic of your own body, either by getting rid of your eyelashes, your eyebrows, or for the men it was more the natural beauty which they have. So if anything which you are trying to change the khalq or your own sort of your appearance, then this is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he puts a stop that you should be happy the way you look. You should not be trying to change the characteristics that you have. And also the dyeing, unless there's a reason to dye your hair, and there are some instances in which you are allowed to dye your hair. For instance, the scholars, they mention if you are planning to go to battle, or if you get married and your wife is quite young and you're quite elderly, you are allowed to dye your hair. But these are certain exemptions which there are in the fiqh.
You've got a white beard and you dye it black. Is that permissible?
So again, if you have a completely white beard, the best thing, the sunnah, is to leave it, because whiteness in the beard is a show of wisdom. It's a show that you have become mature, and you shouldn't try to change that. Now, the only exception that the ulama, they have given, the fuqaha, the ai is if there's a reason for you to look younger, and it's very, very important necessity for you to have that, then you can dye your beard, dye your hair, either with henna or with black color.
Or kola, some people got that as well. Or just for men, some people have got that. It's a good job. I'm in jihad, though, isn't it, brother? I'm ready for battle, brother Sajid. And besides, that was an imposter who had the grey beard that you saw a few weeks ago. This is not a natural beard, but I am in jihad. So there you go. There's my answer.
Also, in terms of, so we've answered the question in terms of you can't have a tattoo. With the tattoo, is it if it's permanent, or even if it's not permanent, is it still not permissible?
Yeah, so if it's permanent, then obviously you are at a loss. But if it's not permanent, then you can take it out. I mean, permanently to put a tattoo is to actually to change the, the essence of your own body, and to to change it for many reasons. And people have tattoos for strange reasons. So again, I would say if someone comes to Islam and he has a tattoo, there's no need to make a big fuss out of it, that, oh, you must get rid of your tattoo, you must. No point in doing that. And same thing when it comes to the khutna. If he hasn't had the khutna done, you don't need to ask him to go through that process of getting himself sterilized, or these things which are not that important when it comes to your basic ibadat.
Jazakallah. The tattoo one, brother Saji, what you have to understand is the origins of tattoos and what's behind it. Because I get loads of young lads, especially because they go to the gym, they're obsessed with the cheat days, and they say, oh, look at my guns. Okay, then. Yeah, but brother Zaid, why can't I have a tattoo? Tattoos are branding. Initially, tattoos were on cattle. You branded them to say, this is my cattle. Then slaves were branded. Then you seen in wars, Jewish people were branded. So it wasn't considered to be a good thing. Now what you see rappers, footballers, all making these funny tattoos, spending thousands, and they consider it to be art. But at the end of the day, it is still branding. And at the end of the day, what takes you away from Islam? If you're going to have these big tattoos and walk around like 10 men asking people, that's vanity. Vanity's not got a place in anyone's life, has it? So I say I don't agree with tattooing.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Okay, Mufti Zaid, thank you very much for that. Okay, Jazakallah. Okay, Sheikh. Just a last couple of questions, Sheikh. In terms of when it comes to dress code, is there anything specific that makes our dress code halal or haram, or should we only be wearing salwar kameez and the jubba? Is there anything halal or haram when it comes to clothes and?
No, I think with clothing it is quite clear. I mean, as long as it covers your private parts, your aura, and it is it's decent. It's not showing off your parts of the body that you shouldn't be showing off for the men and for the women. Any type of clothing is fine. It does the job. I mean, so there's no specific shalwar kameez or jubba or topi. These are all things which are there as an extra part. It's not going to make a difference whether you have a topi or a jilbab. It's not going to be less of a Muslim in that sense. But again, we are seeing, obviously, we are seeing people wearing
Sheikh, Sheikh, whatever. Can you give fatwa over this one? Is this?
Yeah, that looks really. The name itself is not very good. Standard Chartered. I think that's some sort of a bank, is it, or some riba bank?
That's haram. Straight away, that's haram. And that funny bird there, yeah, it looks like the two's are upside down. Yeah, can we just say straight away again? There's a crate of iron brew. Me and Naseem will drop off. This is Islamic. This is not Islamic. Anyone wearing this should take it outside. 30 lashes and straight into the bin, my brothers.
Yes, I think sometimes we see brothers coming to the masjid and the backside is showing in the salah. So basic sort of etiquette of clothing is what is needed. We don't have to go into extremes that you have to wear certain type of clothing. This is not from our beautiful. This is more things which we need to be focused upon: the khushu, the khudu, and the sincerity, the inner parts of the salah, which takes precedence in our times, inshallah.
Just last question. It says here, I've been told that dyeing the hair black is haram for women.
No, it mentions for men, if they dye their hair without any reason, Shari reason, for them it is cursed. For the women, there's more relaxation for the women when it comes to beautification for their husband, not for others. Obviously, the problem is that we are encouraging our sisters and our daughters to beautify themselves, but for the wrong reasons. Islam doesn't say that. Islam says that yes, you are the queen of the house. Your husband is there for you, to support you. So there's the restrictions really for silk and for jewelry is for men. It's not for women. They are allowed to have certain relaxations in the Sharia, in particular when it comes to their natural beauty, their hair, apart from the eyebrows, which there is a clear hadith which mentions that you shouldn't change the appearance of your eyebrow. Most things are left quite relaxed for the women, for our sisters and daughters and mothers.
Yeah. I think also, if I remember from one of the other sheikhs saying, some women can, and this will sound horrible, can have a manly appearance, and as a result of that, they have to have some, it's permissible then for them to look more feminine.
Yes,
In
true,
the same
true.
way, I imagine there's a lot of lads who go out of the way looking very feminine. I've seen the rise of no, it's true. Sheikh, earlier we had people who on an earlier show on radio, there were people who actually have men's makeup. They put touch up and surki and powder and all the rest of it. There'll be lipstick going on for men soon as well. But who are we? Who are we to? In our days, there was nothing wrong with the Tibet snow cream, as far as I know.
Allah. I don't think that's available anymore. Is it still around? Tibet snow cream? I think it's finished now. It's out of fashion.
You have to go to the guy in the counter and do a particular handshake, and he brings it from the bottom.
Allahu Akbar.
Sajid, how come you've appeared twice? So good, we named him twice. Are you with us, Brother Sajid?
I think Brother Sajid's got some technical issues there, ticking away in the background. He comes on.
He's put his face on there. Look how nice he is. That's the face he has just before he asked 20 questions. What we can do is, because we're now at 1:15 and we don't want to take up too much time, if we can start with yourself, Brother Naseem, do you want to round up Haram and Halal for us tonight?
I think, yeah, inshallah ta'ala, jazakallah khair, Imam Mirazam, mashallah, you know what, alhamdulillah, brilliant. Halal is permissible in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Haram is impermissible in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it was exercised by Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. The default is that everything is halal unless Allah Rabbul Alameen has said it is haram. That is the default. So stop saying things that this is haram, this is haram, this is haram. This is not our position to say that I'm going to not drink this. Why? Because it's haram, it's haram. This word that we throw around, one of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's attributes is that He is the decider of what is halal and what is haram. When we start saying that this is haram, then we are taking that element, that attribute from Allah Rabbul Alameen and placing it within ourselves. This is shirk. So we need to stop doing that, number one. Number two, halal and haram is not discussed in fiqh, in jurisprudence. Jurisprudence is debated on items of permissibility. So everything, so basically you would, as an example, you would say, can I pray the 2 rakats of Sunnah, the 4 rakats of Asr Sunnah prior to the Fard or after? Or do I need to read it as 4 together, or can I read 2 together, right? 2 and then 2, okay? It's not permissible and not impermissible. This is different methodologies of doing the same thing. So that is very, very important for people to understand. Now, when we talk about fiqh, when we say the fiqh of Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Shafi, Imam Malik, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, we're not talking about things which are halal and haram. Fiqh is debated on things which are permissible. So everything that the Imams, the great scholars, debated was permissible things, just different avenues. Okay? Haram is categorically stated in the Quran, it's practiced by Rasulullah, and if in doubt, ask the scholar in your heart. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah. I just want to read out some of these text messages that we had today. And the one in particular I'm going to read out is the full text message. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know of any ladies, but anyway, it says here, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to say that I am somebody who does not like you Muslims a lot. But a friend of mine put your show on and said, have a listen to these guys. You lot are not crackpots. You lot are talking things that make perfect sense to me. And as a result, I will make further investigations into your seedy religion. I understand that from your questioning about the haram, and I will find out more about it. As a result, I will tip my hat and say thank you, in particular to your learned scholar from Rochdale, whose answers have been nothing short of brilliant. So that's from a non-Muslim listener there, Sheikh Imam Mirazam. Thank you very much for that, whoever sent that text message over. A couple of other text messages coming through here. It's from Bilal listening to us from Rashom. Brother Imam Mirazam was superb. His explanations were crystal clear. His language was understandable. And most importantly, I gained from tonight's show. Thank you very much. Another one here, and this is from somebody called Simon. Hi, guys. Listen to your show. It was riveting stuff. Well done. Top one. Another one here from no name here. It says here, I had no idea halal and haram was in this detail and this depth. Another one, I feel embarrassed because my income is not halal and I have been justifying it by giving it to charity. I will try my best. Please make dua for me. Inshallah, my brother, you make your intention and follow it through and watch. The early days will be hard. The medium time, it'll come to you. And long term, you'll be blessed. Another couple of text messages here. One of them coming through from somebody called Nodi. Brother Naseem, very, very intellectual and has a great grasp of Islam. Does he have any sermons that I can listen to? Well, he has the Jummah khutbah that you can listen to, which we fortunately get to listen to as well. I'm sure that if you send us an email or drop us a link, we can help you with that one. Another one here from Brother Taz. Haram and halal. The difference is very, very straightforward. If in your mind you're doing something and you do not want to be caught out, the chances are that is not halal. Pretty easy, that one, isn't it? Another one here, and this is from a sister. Please do not read out my name. Brothers, just to say that I have got my 2 sons listening to your show and my daughter, and we record the shows, and hopefully tomorrow we will listen to them again. It's a shame you guys do not come to our local mosque. Another one here from again, not asking for a name, sister here saying, brother, you guys are so funny. It makes staying up to have something to eat enjoyable. Glad we could fill in the breaks. And lastly, another one, a text message here from somebody called Nad, Russian. So a Russian guy. It says here, haram and halal is a very, very difficult process because haram is the way haram is the way not to conduct your life. Halal is the way that you should conduct your life. Also, your front door should be halal. Anyone coming through that shouldn't be drinking, shouldn't be swearing, and should be having fear of Allah. Thank you very much. So quite a lot of text messages there. Brother Naseem Ashraf, the knockout and the director of the charity UCAF, Jazakallah khair for yourself. And Brother Sajid, your final words before we go to Imam Mirazam.
Yeah, Jazakallah to the Sheikh for answering the questions, mashallah, to the point, saying it how it is, and Jazakallah for everyone taking part. And inshallah, this is what the Let's Talk show is about, to making sure we raise these issues, and Jazakallah for everyone taking part. Please do subscribe to the YouTube channel, and please do keep in touch and share the show to others as well. Jazakallah. Sheikh, if you could,
Yes. Yeah, Jazakallah to the listeners for their kind words. We are not worthy of their kind words, but may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it on our behalf and reward them for listening. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us all to the straight path, to the path that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to be from, the path which concentrates on the halal and the haram. And on this night of Ramadan al-Mubarak, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that may He cure the ones who are suffering with this COVID-19. Although the brothers who have passed away, make a special dua for them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them Jannah for those after. And may we be as Muslims the best humans, the best Rashdalis, the best old Armenians. May we be the best people that are able to pass this message on to others. And really, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our effort for His sake alone. And reward us all in this world and the hereafter, and give us all sincerity, ikhlas in our work. And really, whatever has come out from our mouths, which is beneficial, is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anything that we have said out of ignorance, out of error, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness for that. And verily, He is the most forgiving, He is the most merciful.
MashaAllah. Yeah, Sheikh, first of all, we'd like to say Jazakallah khair for taking your time out. And mashallah, your answers have been fantastic. It's the first time we've got you on the show. So that means now we're going to get you on a regular basis, inshallah. Thanks to Brother Naseem. And
Yeah, I just want to say, yeah, I
Okay.
want to just say this, Brother Naseem, you know, the number of messages that we've had about how well Imam Mirazam has actually explained these things. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with him. Of all these messages, Imam, the one message I want to just spend a second to explain. This message is for somebody who is not Muslim. This person hates Islam. He said it himself. CD religion. He's called all this. He said, but the way that you've answered these questions, he's going back and he's going to look into what haram is all about. Now, we've seen this before, years and years and years, where somebody goes to think, you know what, let's go and find out about this backward religion. And they go, and lo and behold, that person stumbles across the noble Quran. The minute that that person opens that book, something that they've only been speculative about, talking about, and had miscommunication about, it's game over. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows this was their journey. So I want to thank you for everybody who's taken part of the show and all our listeners, big or small. That one person, inshallah, may well bring shahada. If they do that, then coming on this show in Ramzan has made our entire Ramzan.
Sure.
You know, Imam Mirazam, your explanations, you kept up with our humor, you kept up with all the, you know, questions. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased. You had brilliant explanations for everything, and you were not fazed. And for that, alhamdulillah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you even more knowledge and give you incredible, you know, health, and whatever your dua is, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kabul it. You know, from all of us, let's talk. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair, and may Allah bless all of us. And really, this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We glorify him and we seek his mercy at all times. Really, Jazakallah from the bottom of my heart on this blessed name, on this blessed day, on the blessed night of Ramadan. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for acceptance for all our good deeds. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum. Thanks to everybody taking part in Let's Talk tonight. Thanks to Brother Naseem, Brother Sajid, Imam Mirazam. Fantastic scholar there. And thanks for everybody who are asking questions about halal and haram. Anyone who has any further questions, drop us a text message. We'll do our best. We'll be back here again tomorrow night, kicking off between 10:30 and 11 o'clock. Please subscribe to our channels, and let's see how we get on. And until tomorrow, I'll leave you with the Islamic greeting of Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.